Well, hello everyone. I'm back. Another long day. Actually, it wasn't so bad. It's almost 7, so I'm in good shape. I'm leaving work. I'm tired as hell. One more day to go. I'm pretty sure I'm on pure overtime, or I'm pretty sure I hit overtime sometime tonight. Probably didn't get more than a couple hours of overtime, but tomorrow's going to be just overtime. Yay! So that'll be good. And, probably get, 8 hours or so of overtime. So with that, 8 or 9 hours. That'll be good. I could use it. So, yeah. That's how things are going at work. And, I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen when I get home tonight, because apparently they're doing all this work on my parking lot, and they have now closed the entire parking lot. Just said, everybody get the fuck out until we're done. So, I don't know how that's going to go, but we'll figure it out. We'll see. I guess I can just park at the freaking Walmart. I don't know. I'm not sure if they'll allow that, but we'll see. Yeah, that wasn't really what I wanted to talk about. That's just the prelude to what I did want to talk about. And it's something I've been kind of just meaning to discuss. Again, it's just kind of me ranting about things that are weird to me, but, I live in Salt Lake City, as you probably could tell from my online, Storyteller SLC, Salt Lake City. I couldn't just do Storyteller because somebody took that a long time ago. I don't know who, but there it is. So, yeah. So Salt Lake City, kind of famously, when it was first settled here, they built the temple. They built the Mormon temple downtown. And then they just built out in a grid. They were really, really smart about it. Because the whole city, especially if you go downtown and you go to the surrounding areas, it's all just a grid. It's all just, can you find a point on a map using X and Y coordinates? If you can find what you're looking for. It's freaking brilliant. And the further out you go, the sort of less it is that way. There are neighborhoods where it's kind of a grid, but there's only a couple ways in or out. And that they had to do that because of development issues and property rights and people had farms out there or whatever. And then you get into the suburbs, where it's just a gigantic clusterfuck because there was even more of that. There were people that had acres and acres of land and they had to build around it, and there was already a road in certain places, and so they just paved it and kind of went from there, and and it's kind of a fucking nightmare. And then you get out to where I work, where they just went, the hell with it, and just did whatever the hell they wanted, and had a fucking seizure. There's a whole section out where I work, where I deliver, where there's only one way out to a main road, and there's only one main road you can get to from the entire neighborhood, from the entire area. There's no other way, and there might be, but I have yet to find it. There might be a way out to one of the other major streets or whatever, but I can't. But you're literally driving by these houses, going, a major street backs onto these people's backyards. If I could jump their fence, I'd be at a major street. Can't freaking get there, and you can drive for 2 or 3 miles down the street. Can't get there. It's so annoying. It's so freaking annoying. And then there are whole areas Draper is like this, and North Salt Lake. There's actually a city. It's separate because there's the northern part of Salt Lake City, but then there's actually a city that's North Salt Lake. It's its own city. It's separate, and it was just a swamp. There was nothing there. It was just, completely undeveloped, unused land. And, at some point some developers were hey, let's build houses there. So they could have done any goddamn fool thing they wanted. They could have been remember that grid system thing? What a great idea that was. Let's do that. But they didn't. Instead, somebody went to Southern California and went, no, let's do this. And so it makes no fucking sense. Streets turn into other streets, and there's roundabouts and cul-de-sacs and nothing. You can't it's impossible. It's just completely impossible. You cannot find your way around. It's just, it's a complete nightmare. And it makes me crazy, like, every time I go up there, and I don't, like, I'm not up there that often. I've had occasions where I have to go up there for something, but, mostly I don't have to, thank God. But it just makes me insane, because, like, I go up there, and it's like they could have done anything they wanted. They could have continued the grid system, and what a wonderful idea it is. Because, like, if you're living downtown, or, like, if you live in the Avenues, there's this whole neighborhood called the Avenues, and, all the east-west running streets, like going up north, it's like 1st Avenue, 2nd Avenue, 3rd Avenue, 4th Avenue, and so on, right? And then starting from downtown out east, it's just A Street, B Street, C Street, D Street, right? Fucking brilliant. There is no way to get lost up there. It cannot be done. You cannot get lost up there if you're there. And that's like one of the older parts of the city where everybody lived at first, like in the 1800s and stuff. So there's all these historic houses and stuff, and it's, and it's a very kind of eclectic neighborhood. There's like really poor people who live there. There's really rich people who live there. But like I said, it is impossible to get lost up there. You cannot get lost. It cannot be done. If you're like, meet me at D Street and 8th Avenue, easy peasy. There's a couple of one-way streets and stuff, so that can get a little, but, other than that, it is impossible to get lost. It's absolutely amazing. Like my old neighborhood where I grew up, which is a little further out, it was kind of, but it was, it was kind of south of the University of Utah, sort of. And let's all stop for the green light, because why not? Let's just all stop. I see no reason why we shouldn't just all come to a screeching halt. Okay, but anywho, that neighborhood that I was, not that I grew up in, but that I lived in until I was about 12 or 13. It was just brilliant. Again, it was next to impossible, not quite impossible, but next to, because there were a couple little windy streets and stuff, but it was next to impossible to get lost up there. It's like you can't do it. It's next to impossible. It's just, everything is right where you need it. Meet me at 11th South and 19th East. Boom. It's impossible not to find it. Like, it's right there. It's wonderful. So anyway, but then you get, North Salt Lake and Draper in particular, where there was nothing there. There was nothing. They could have done anything they wanted, and what they did was make this, like, hugely complicated, impossible to navigate thing. And I know there has to have been a reason. There has to have been, like, a scientific reason or an economic reason. Like, people like to live on cul-de-sacs, so we'll do a bunch of those or whatever. There has to be a reason like that. But I do not, for the life of me, know what it is. So every time I'm in there, it just makes me insane, because they could have made it easy to get around when they developed the thing, and they didn't. They deliberately made it hard. It's not like where some of the suburbs, like after I moved out of the neighborhood I was talking about, I moved out to Holiday, which is a suburb of Salt Lake City, and now it's like its own thing. Anyway, but, in Holiday, like, nobody knows what the hell is going on in Holiday, because, like, they sort of tried with the grid system, but it's one of those areas where, like, there were farms, and there were, there were land rights, and they had to, like, build all these weird, like, do all these windy streets and do all this kind of crazy shit, and, it's really hard to navigate. But it makes sense because it wasn't planned. It was just urban sprawl. It was just, we kept going, and it just got harder to continue the grid system as we got further and further out. That's all it is. So it makes sense. It's annoying. It still drives you absolutely nuts trying to find anything out there. But it makes sense. You understand, like, how this happened. Because nothing out there, and not nothing, like, there are little, like, planned developments here and there, but mostly stuff wasn't planned. It just kind of showed up wherever, and they put stuff where they could, and they had to, build roads around other roads and roads around people's property, and then the property, the city would buy it, and then they could finally put roads through it. So, it was that kind of thing, and you get it. You're out there going like, okay, well, it's a pain in the ass, but it's not deliberate. We understand why it's a pain in the ass. Then, again, Draper, North Salt Lake, where they could have just done anything, and they didn't. They did this like let's make this deliberately hard. And it boggles my mind. It really boggles my mind. And it just is one of those things. I think that's part of the frustration for me, because I know there's a reason, and I just can't for the life of me. And I think it must be an economic one. I think it must be something like the developers wanted it to be that way for some specific economic reason. And I don't know what it was. And it just makes me insane. Because it's one of those weird puzzles that I feel like should have an answer, and I should know what it is, but I don't. So anyway, that's kind of my rant about that. And the other thing that gets interesting as a pizza delivery driver and a person who has lived in Salt Lake all my life, like, every single street has a street number. And the street number is not always really apparent. Okay? But, because like sometimes they'll just put the, on the street sign or whatever, they'll just have the street name and not the number. But like, so like my apartment complex is on 9th East, and it's just 9th East. But, there are other streets like the, the neighborhood I was talking about before. They have a couple of streets named after major universities. And the one I grew up on was Yale Avenue. And Yale Avenue is 1080 South. Okay? So that helps you find it. Like, if somebody calls you on the phone and says, where the hell is Yale Avenue? Well, it's 1080 South. And the minute you tell them that, they will find it. The minute you tell them that, it is impossible not to find it. Any person, anywhere in the world, who comes to Salt Lake City and is like, I wonder where Yale Avenue is. It's 1080 South. Okay, boom. You will find it. You will be able to find it. And I cannot tell you how many times as a pizza delivery driver, somebody's like on some new street or something, and I don't know where it is, and Google Maps doesn't know where it is. And I tell them, give me I need to know your street number. And they have no idea what I'm talking about. They have no idea, well, so we're kind of by a 7-Eleven, and you go left, and then you go 2 streets, and you go right. Inevitably, they try and give me directions, and it makes me insane. They're like, no, don't give me directions, tell me the street number. And they just can't, and people who have lived here all their lives, like they sort of do or should understand how this works, and they can't tell me where the hell they live. And it just drives me up the wall. It's like, that was one of the first things when I was a little kid that, because, it would happen. When people would call me up and be like, where's Yale Avenue? 1080 South. I was 8 years old, 1080 South. Oh, okay. No problem. They do this for a living. They know how to find it. Bada boom. Easy peasy. But then, all the time I call people and I'm just like, I need your street number. Your street doesn't show up on any map that I have. If you give me the street number, I can probably zero in on it. Even out in Sandy, where I work, which is, again, it kind of started as a suburb of Salt Lake, and now it's its own thing. But and it's a pretty big clusterfuck, and it is hard to find your way around. But again, if I have your street number, I can probably zero in on it. I may, get lost a couple times, have to turn around, whatever, but I can find it. And again, what's your street number? Oh, well, you go left, and then there's a 7-Eleven. It makes me insane. Anyway, so the moral of this story, wherever you live, learn your freaking address. That's going to do it for me anyway, and I will be at work tomorrow, so maybe if I'm not dead, I'm so tired, I don't know how I'm going to get through it. Somehow, I'm going to get through it. But anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow.